Okay, here we go. So we'll do a video of the second round of our workshop, focusing on the shoulders in particular, with some techniques for the neck. And before we begin, what we'll do is we'll just do a little bit of a warm-up for the spine. So it'll be quite straightforward, and we'll just give the spine an opportunity to stretch. We'll bring it into flexion and a little bit of rotation. So I'll begin by just lifting the feet up like so, and I can notice the hamstring flexibility here, at what point the hips lift up off the ground. And I can also notice, this is my first time working on Jennifer, so I get to sort of develop this relationship with her and feel sort of where she's at. I'm just going to use my knees behind her knees to encourage them to bend. I'll let the knees open out to the sides in the way that they fall naturally. There we go. So holding the heels with my hands, I'm going to step my feet back a few inches and shift my weight to the balls of my feet. And then I use my knees and I place them just above the sitting bones on the hamstrings, sort of center of the back of the thigh. And then I'll use my shoulders here to support the heels and my hands to find the front of the shoulder. And as I shift my weight forward, I'm going to shift weight into my knees and then slowly into my palms. So keeping my knees rooted, this is going to bring a stretch into her hamstring via my shoulders. And then I'm shifting weight into my hands, which is also going to apply some body weight to what we can call lung 1 in the shiatsu tradition, or that chest-shoulder junction where we find pec minor, wonderful muscle to warm up and then release. So I'll just do this pulse a few times. I'll lean back into my knees and then lean forward into my hands. And this is a nice way to start a little bit of a rhythm. Fabulous little technique. It comes from the Brima tradition. They call it the Sarhana lean. I'm going to stand back up and I'm going to walk back. I'll try not to use the phrase "I'm gonna." This is my aim. I'm going to walk back so that the legs are less than 90 degrees. And then I'm just going to shift the weight to my left leg. And I step my left foot back so that I can keep the hips open as I cross my right foot over. And I line up my right foot parallel to her body, and I lock back with my right Achilles heel against her thigh. From there, I keep my right foot in place and just step slowly to the left with my left leg. At some point, there's enough tension based on Jen's flexibility and the lock of my heel that I don't need my hands. I can still use my hands and bring her into more of a twist by allowing the legs to move towards the floor, like so. And this lock, it's a nice way to stretch and twist the spine just a little bit. If you are familiar with the Wu Tai transition to seated, this would be a good thing to practice. So again, I rest the feet on my thigh. With the opposite leg, I step just outside her hip and slightly above so that I can lock the top of her thigh with the back of my Achilles heel. And then I walk my foot around. I stay locked. I can use my hand for support. And I'm taking her to her natural degree of flexibility, right about there. And all the leverage of my legs is giving her a twist and stretching the outer hip. Really nice technique. Very simple. Okay. So moving on, we'll come into a supported position for the legs so that we can warm up, again, the pec minor region here. First point of emphasis is how we place our palm. So this is a great opportunity to pay attention to hand placement. I'm going to spread my palm, use the fullness of my touch to make a connection. And then I make these little circles as a way to find where the skin is relaxed. and where it's slack is where I sink. And as I sink, I can slightly rotate my palm in to keep the skin slack and to allow me to sink a little bit deeper. And I do the same thing with my other hand. And I'm not gonna. I simply palm like the big mama cat from side to side. If you get happy with one side and you want to just allow your body weight to rest, you can let the body weight sink there. And something that's nice is to turn the head in that direction with a soft palm on the forehead. That also shortens the muscle and allows you to sink a little bit more deeply. So we can warm up this point in Chinese medicine they call letting go. So it's a perfect analogy for our practice. I'm going to sit back into an archer's position, like so. And then here, I take the magic 2, make them a magic 4, hand on hand. I reach across to the opposite shoulder, hook, and lean. And you can see that I'm really focusing on the diagonal. So what I'm not going to do is do the same technique here. I have more power here at the diagonal because I can push off of this leg. So I hook with straight arms, I lean my body back. And I just move my fingers to different positions. If I reach my arms around, I can bring Jen's knees into her chest. Switch sides fairly easily. And I sit back in the archer. Then I have the other side. So I reach, place one hand on top of the other. Middle finger, ring finger are doing the work. They hook, and I lean back. Nice release for the traps, trapezius muscles, working the gallbladder 22 point, the shoulder well. Excellent point for headaches and basically allowing energy to descend towards the feet. Strong descending energy point. And as I mentioned earlier, apparently is working to induce labor for expectant mothers who are past their due date. That one's dedicated to Catherine. All right, is that okay? So we can now transition to working one arm at a time. I'm going to release her legs to the floor. That'll give me a little bit more freedom. So I'll begin working on this side, her left side, my right side. And the first thing I'm going to do is start to articulate the arm bone in its joint in the socket. And what I'm going to do is move the hand in a little bit of a circle, like so, lifting it up, forward, down, and back. And you'll see that the elbow, almost like a locomotive, is moving in this pattern. And what that's doing is as I release the hand down, the head of the arm bone at the front lifts up. As I lift it up, the posterior side releases down. So the movement through this joint and through this action is lifting and lowering the arm bone. So I simply facilitate a little bit more of that. I place the magic 2 at the back of the arm bone and place my thumb on the front. And you can practice one side at a time. So as I lower the elbow, I lift up with my fingers, like so. And as I lift the arm, I press with my thumb down. And you'll find there's a divot at the back of the shoulder here, where your fingers nest into the back of the glenoid joint. And then at the front, your thumb presses down at the head of the arm bone. And so we follow this movement, this little locomotion. It's easier if I rest my forearm on my opposite thigh. So here, a little bit more comfortable, same technique, like so. Yes? Am I missing anything? Not yet? Okay. I'm going to switch positions of my legs, and I'm going to start working along the clavicle collarbone like the V-neck, and I still lift the arm slightly and depress with my thumb. So ideally, I'm getting a good perpendicular pressure here through my thumb while I lift the arm at the same time. So it's shortening this muscle here, the pec minor, as I palpate along the clavicle, just underneath the collarbone where you feel the flesh. How's that going there? A lot of these techniques are helping us to simply facilitate a natural range of movement and expand on that. So it's quite gentle. From the underside of the shoulder, we can do some work with the hand, and I'm going to be pressing with my with my fingers up like a scoop, right underneath the shoulder, close to the spine. So sit up for a moment, would you? So my fingers, if the shoulder blade is here, the side of the shoulder blade comes down. I'm going to be just inside between the side of the shoulder blade and the spine, right in the middle, and I'll move my fingers up and down along this area. Go ahead and lie down. I'll create some space to slide my hand in. And once my hand is in, I let the weight of the arm rest on my hand, and then I press up with my fingers. I can add to that this locomotion of the arm. And so as I release the elbow down, I press up with my fingers here. So far, so good. Camera angle, I think it's pretty clear. And so now we're really allowing for the whole shoulder blade to get some space away from the spine and work some of the muscles that run along the spine close to the shoulder blade. Very nice feeling. Now, I had mentioned that with some of the larger receivers, if you have someone who's quite muscular or large and it's hard for you to get leverage with your finger, you can roll your friend, create some space. You can let me do this for you. You just relax. Your job is to be as lazy as possible. You can place the inner edge of your foot in that same spot and just let the body weight and gravity do the work. So my foot is resting on the outer edge of the foot. And then as I place it, I allow her body to rest right there. And we can have some fun here. We can even lean back and do a little bit of lifting with the foot. She seems to be enjoying this. Yeah. So it's a bit of play around the work of the shoulder. As we complete this side, you can rest. Yeah. There you go. We'll simply do a little bit of palming again there at the pec minor. Okay, so now we've worked a little bit around the shoulder. We're going to do a little bit of work on the neck. Normally, what I would do at this point is allow this side to rest and work on the other side. Since I'm in this position, place my hand and do this movement. I'm going to show it from the other side for the camera. So, well, this would probably be, let me do it once, then I can have you come in with the camera. So I place a soft palm on the forehead, and here, with nice full contact, I can easily roll the head from side to side. So I'm going to bring the receiver's face towards me, reach around with the magic 2, and I hook underneath the neck. So it's like the vertebrae fall into the creases of my knuckles and my fingers. And then as I lean back, I give a gentle pressure on the forehead. Most of the action comes from my right hand leaning back, and then there's a little invitation to go deeper with the palm on the forehead. Very nice technique to bring a little bit of extension, a little bit of side bending into the neck. So yeah, if you want to come over, we'll take a closer look at this. Okay. So once again, we create some space here so you can see what's going on. Take my fingers and I follow the neckline all the way to the back, right there, and then I keep my hand there and gently pull back and use my hand on the forehead to follow. So again, find where to go, place, hook, and then lean back. Very nice. Okay, let's go back to our original camera angle. From the same side, I can simply switch hands. So now I'll be using my left hand to make the hook. So again, I can just turn her head in this direction. I find where to go. I place my opposite hand on the shoulder here, and I fix through my right hand on the shoulder and lean just slightly back to stretch the neck. So this is more of a stretch than the last one, so you want to be careful, cautious. I would exercise a little bit more awareness and sensitivity since we're working with the neck here. And feel free to check in with your partner about how deep it's going. Again, focus on fixing the shoulder and then just adding a little bit of a stretch. Okay. Back to center, we would do the other side and then we can move on. Now there's one thing that we covered earlier, which I didn't mention when we had the legs resting on the thighs, which is flexion of the neck. So this is quite straightforward. You lean the head to one side so you can take a firm hold with your opposite hand. So I'm holding the entire head here. Very easy for me to lift up. I'm going to use both hands under the head and rest my forearms just inside the shoulder and tuck the chin in towards the chest. And I can actually allow my forearms to rest here as I bring her neck into flexion. So if I'm working with someone who's a bit more flexible, I take my opposite hand behind and I lift her up low. Now let your body go. So I'm holding you. Yes, there we go. Good. And that actually is a nice warm-up for what we're going to do next, which is the fish. I'm not missing anything, am I? Okay. That went quickly, didn't it? Yeah, quite quickly. Okay, so for the fish, we'll be wanting to bring our receiver up and place our feet underneath, basically at the bottom tips of the shoulder blades, with the soles of the feet flexed and the toes flexed back. So, Molly, why don't you do the camera work again, and you can come to the side here. You'll get a better visual. We'll be a little bit more spontaneous. So stay a little bit further back. Hello. That's good right there. And then tilt it towards her. Excellent, right there. So one of the more important things with this technique is to be assertive to lift your partner up. Some of us are a bit shy about this. So we want to, again, place our friend's head in our hand. So we have one hand that's supporting the head, and then the other hand will come behind the neck, quite low, near the beginning of the thoracic spine, and we'll lift our partner up. Keep leaning back into me. That's it. Jenny wants to do the work for me. So that support will allow you to lift your partner up high enough to get your feet under their upper back. So lay your head behind me. That's good. Good. There we go. And then I place my feet. And as best you can, you want to find your toes at the base of the bottom tips of the shoulder blades. And then if you extend your legs, it'll make it easier to flex your toes back. I'm supporting the head in a neutral position, so there's not too much extension in the neck here. And then with my feet, I can do a little movement from side to side, maybe even some circles with the toes. This kind of technique does work better if your toes are flexible, if you have good flexibility, and you can practice by kneeling with your toes tucked under to get that flexibility. How's that feel? If it doesn't quite fit in that spot, what you would do is Practice lifting your partner up, readjusting the foot position, coming back and say, better, worse, same. She likes that. Good. To come out, I do give her support. I release to the tops of my feet, and I rest her upper back on the tops of my feet. And here, I'm relaxed, she can relax, and I can play a little bit with the big toe mound, or the knuckle, on the top of my foot, right inside the shoulder blade. Nice. So, just so you can see, when I had my feet underneath, it was like this, quite close together, with her body resting here, shoulder blades outside, spine inside the feet. Up. Up. Fish. Baby fish. Finish. Okay. And then if you like, you can practice what we did yesterday, which was just the vault hold at the occipital ridge. This is a technique from craniosacral therapy. And we place the magic 2 just at the base of the occipital ridge, and you come into as comfortable a position as possible and just move the neck, or really the whole head, through a gentle extension where the chin lifts, and flexion. Extension and flexion. And then somewhere in between, you can simply hold the position, relax your own body, and soften your finger pads. And here, you can practice listening for that pulse of a gentle extension, a gentle flexion. That happens quite slowly. So what I feel now is that there is a slowly, it's as if her chin is coming towards her chest. It's so subtle that you can hardly feel it. I might even be hallucinating. But that's what I'm getting at the moment. And it's continuing. It's a lot slower than the breath. It's a lot slower than the heartbeat. And then it goes through a cycle. And at the end of the cycle, we're still going through flexion, chin towards chest, a lengthening of the back of the neck. It's a bit boring, isn't it? And then at some point, it starts to go into extension, and so now I can feel that movement just at the base of the skull, at the occipital ridge. There is a subtle movement moving towards extension. And so if you hold like this for maybe 5 minutes or longer, you can practice listening to that subtle movement of the craniosacral pulse. So I can just bring her gently out by sliding my hands out and giving her space to simply feel and integrate.